To this point, I think it has become very clear to myself that whatever sense of storytelling that we used to get, that we used to have, is gone now. And quite frankly, right, the way that characters used to speak in stories, and for one, let's just say this, great storytelling really is dead today. The way that characters used to speak to one another, the way that stories used to play out, let's just be clear about this. Storytelling used to be controversial. It used to address controversial ideas, statements. That's what stories used to address. Nowadays, all stories do is they coddle you. All stories are largely mundane people who say mundane things. If it's not mundane people, if it's extraordinary people, well, the writers, they seem to typically not write these characters for anything, right? They don't have an idea of what they're writing their characters for. And so this is the thing that's so frustrating, is because again, they write their characters to have really no other thoughts or ideas besides push the plot. That's really what it comes down to. The characters, they don't say anything controversial. They don't have any of these hard ideas that they stand for. And really, if there's anything that any character nowadays stands for, it's always some kind of liberal, woke, ideological stance, right? It's like, oh, well, this thing about the planet, or this thing about race. It's always this way. It's always the same tired, liberal, dog water horse crap that we get in all of our stories nowadays. It happens time and time again. Again, we were playing this one game recently that was, the characters were just going on about something that is rather common sense, but I guess for modern people who are, I guess are so stupid or so unread, there's something going on. I don't get it, but this is I guess this is such a problem to a developer that they had to put this into a story, which is a character saying, everyone within a group, all those people, there's individuals. And a group does not speak for the individuals. Okay, dude, yeah, we get that. Like, how is this not something that's understood in a story, that you can't just generalize a group of people, which, by the way, you can. It's way more nuanced than that. But, and that's where I'm making the adaptation to what they say, right? Because these liberal writers, they say you can't generalize a group of people. No, you absolutely can. Absolutely. But what really it comes down to is there are individuals within a group of people who basically negate from themselves the herd mind, okay? That's not many people, though. Most people are herd-minded individuals, so what you will get, right, is, yes, very generalized thinking. You will talk to many people within a specific group, and, oh, that's interesting, this one guy thinks the same thing as the other guy, and the other guy, and the other guy. And if there's anyone that's a contrarian, well, the contrarians are in their own little group. People don't think logically, deductively, rhetorically. They don't think in a way where it's like, wait, hold on, what are my ideas? Okay, let me break that down. Does that work? Is that logical? Does that seem reasonable? Oh, does that line of ideas or thoughts, does that line up with these ideas of thoughts? No, people just randomly come up with things. And what it really comes down to is people care more about perceptions rather than their accuracy, rather than the truth, and rather than being correct. And that's where we live in this world nowadays, where people think that things are also subjective. Of course, there's nothing that is subjective. And of course, if there is anything that is subjective, most people don't even know what that subjective thing is. They don't even know how to categorize it because they lack discernment. If you cannot discern what is objective, you cannot discern what is subjective. And so this is the problem. There are so many things that are objective. And for some reason, you have these people who believe that everything is subjective. And it's because these people lack discernment. It's because they have no sense of reasoning, deductive thinking. And let's be clear about this. Throughout history, the best writers, the inventors, and let's just be clear about it. A culture with great writers has great inventors, because that is creative, innovative, expansive thought. It's just applied in different domains. A great storyteller is a great inventor. As simple and as clear as that. If you have great thinkers within your civilization, you're gonna have great freaking stories. Great dialogue, because great dialogue is great ideas, great thoughts, great speech patterns, okay? Only intelligent people can do this. Nowadays, the meek and the meager have become the common talents, even for your AAA products and games, movies, television shows, books, even books. Let's just be clear about that. Even specifically the big books, right? The bigger writers who are whatever, that whole thing. That's a whole different topic, but it doesn't matter. Everything that is largely mainstream, though, the writers are just run-of-the-mill people who don't have great ideas, people who are not really well thought out. So why, of course, so then it's like, well, why be surprised, right? How could we be surprised, truly, that everything is so mundane and nothing is really that well thought out, controversial for the sake of rhetoric, for the sake of logical processing and reasoning? It's like, yeah, well, when you hire freaking losers and idiots, or you just hire people that are not really inspired in their concepts, their ideas, and they're afraid. They're afraid to test their thoughts and ideas. They're afraid to choose between two logical stances. Oh, do I side with this group, let's say in the 1930s, or do I side with that group? No, it's already decided for you because everyone's going to socially coerce you to just accept one position. And this goes down with anything that's happened in history, that's happening in modern history. You have to follow the herd. Everyone tells you must follow the herd. If you don't follow the herd, there's something wrong with you. And these people are fools. These people are weak. These people are not intelligent. And of course, now we get these sorts of storytellers. We've coerced this for so long. Old storytellers, they were individuals. They were also men, but they were individualistic men. They had their different convictions. They had value. Whatever it is they thought about the world, it had value. Why? Because it was logically and reasonably, deductively sound as well as thought out. They didn't just have these random ideas that other people told them to think. We now live in an age of dogma, political activism, and ultimately indoctrination. And this is on so many levels. And let's be clear about this. Everyone today is a liberal. Everyone today is a liberal. The conservatives are liberals. The freaking people who think they're in the middle, and really they're just political cowards, they're liberals. The freaking leftists, they're hysterical liberals. That's the end road of liberalism, of course, is the hysterical leftist. And then there's everyone else that's holding on for dear life, and they're like, well, I believe in normal things, like, that multiple cultures can exist in one society. Yeah, show that ever working in history. Oh, by the way, that never did work in history. Actually, every time you had multiple cultures within one civilization, that ended up being inherent friction, inherent civil conflict, and eventually that civilization breaks apart and dies. It never has worked. It never will work. And we have these same people, left, right, center. The center are cowards. All sides of these people, okay, technically the conservatives are cowards if they're not even truly holding themselves to their own supposed beliefs of traditionalism or whatever the heck they think they're conserving, or what. I don't even know what conservative means, or whatever, who cares? But this is the problem, is that we have these people and they all believe the same thing. And when you look at the entire landscape of storytelling now, everyone believes the same thing in stories. Nobody thinks anything different. No one's controversial. Old storytellers, they used to approach very controversial, conflicting ideas. And also, let's not forget the point that was being made there. By the way, again, you cannot have multiple cultures within one civilization. That will always end in strife and conflict. It is a ridiculous idea, a ridiculous notion. And also, the other example, before we forget this, also, the whole belief that men and women can or are the same. That they can be or are the same. That is ridiculous. That is a complete made-up notion, okay? And all throughout history, we've proven this. Men achieve differently than women, and really they have more capacity to achieve more things than women. Women achieve less than men, and they don't achieve much, okay? We've seen this all throughout history. And now, left, right, and the cowardly center, they all want to sit there and clutch their pearls when you say the truth. And that's the world we live in today. The truth has become mockery. Well, the truth is what has become to be mocked, right? That has become the grounds for mockery, is the truth. Everyone wishes to live within the fantasy mind rather than the reality mind. Ultimately, is the men who are the strategists, the inventors, the blacksmiths, whatever, the politicians, the leaders, they are the Mr. Olympias. There is no Mrs. Olympia. This freaking bull crap where we try to think and believe that women are the same as men. They are not. And in no way, shape, or form throughout history have women ever proven they have the same capacity as men. They are not Shakespeare. They are not Leonardo da Vinci. They're not freaking Leonardo DiCaprio. They're none of these guys. They don't have charisma. They don't have ingenious. They are not the pioneers, all right? And they are not the risk takers. They're not the Paul Reveres. They're none of these guys that do what it takes to get the freaking whatever thing it is, get it done. Throughout history, we've seen this, but you have everyone that wants to believe in these made-up ideas that have always been disproven throughout history, right? Multiple cultures that works out somehow, that viewing the genders as androgynous, and like, oh, women are strong. No, that's never existed. When you are begging for someone strong to be in your civilization, who do you think of? Just think about it for 2 seconds. Who do you think of? When a man says, we need strong workers because we need to build a building in this city, who do you think of? Oh, you think obviously of women, right? Oh, we need to go fix that windmill. It's broken. We need strong, capable, intelligent workers. Who do we hire? Oh, clearly women, right? Oh, we need to go defeat that freaking pack of wolves outside the city that's killing all of our freaking livestock and whatnot. Who do we hire? Obviously women, right? That one warrior brigade of boss babe females. Obviously we're hiring the women for all these things all throughout history. Oh, we need to hire someone to build all the swords, which by the way requires physical labor. To build all the swords, a blacksmith. We need to, and also we need someone to make all the armor too. We're gonna hire a woman, because women are as good with their hands and hand-eye coordination as men, and they also have the ligament and the muscle tone and mass to deal with that kind of a job, to be a blacksmith. Absolutely, we're hiring women for this. No, never. There's a reason why men dominate engineering. There's a reason why they dominate, coding, whatever field you want to talk. There's a reason why men dominate everything, okay? Because men are the utility sex. Women are the reproductive sex. That is what history is. But people want to live within the fantasy mind. They do not want to live within the reality mind. So we push these made-up ideas, and now we live in a culture where everybody is stupid. So let's be clear about that before we get into the fact of what I'm saying here next. And what I have to say, right, is that our stories are dead. Great storytelling is dead. Storytelling is inherently and always has been, because reality is inherently and always has been controversial. There is no idea and there is no such thing that you can have a story that is not controversial. And there is no story that is worth perceiving or considering or speculating within that does not have something that piques your mind, that piques your interest, that gets you thinking, oh wow, I wonder what that guy's trying to say right there. Oh wow, are they right? Were the 1930s bad guys, were they really the bad guys? Because if you look at it from this perspective, we don't get stories like that anymore. You can't even consider that, because or else you've committed, right? We don't have religion anymore these days. We can't sit there and lord over each other that, oh, this is what God thinks, this is what God is okay with, this is what God's not okay with. And by the way, if you actually read the Bible, you have nothing to do with someone's spiritual life. Okay, obviously you can help guide someone, but you don't have anything to do with someone's spiritual life. That is between themselves and God, and it's throughout the Bible, it's always been that way. In real life, it truly is that way. In some way, that's what makes evangelism so stupid, because you're just sitting there and you're just trying to lord over people. And evangelists, ultimately, what do? They freak you out about life and death, and they're like, you're going to die, so you must believe in my faith and you must listen to my pastor, because my pastor is the individual who knows all. And also, I'm an idiot and I don't know anything, and I barely read the Bible myself, but I will tell you exactly what my pastor tells you, and I'm just going to believe that my pastor has good discernment after reading the Bible, what I couldn't bother doing. These people are freaking jokes, okay? They don't believe in God. They believe in man. They believe in an organization of man that utilizes God's name and God's image for their own means to an end, okay? And that is the problem with modern religion. Of course, those same idiots they left those religions for different reasons. Some of them, they just couldn't control enough people through that religion. They were like, what's a different religion that's going to control more people? Modernity. And modernity is the new age religion. And it doesn't matter because most people are not authentic believers. Most people are herd animals who do not care about the truth, and they don't care about reason. And that is the same that has always happened with religion, and that is why religion has always been so trash and crap, and why this is why so many people have walked away from faith, from religion, because no one believes in God. That is really fundamentally what it is, and nobody reads the Bible. Nobody reads the Bible. No one has a faith in God. Why do you think people walk away? Okay? And most people, they can't even tolerate anymore. In modernity, again, New Age religion, let's just say this first and foremost, before we say things about the New Age religion, this is why there's so many things that people cannot tolerate that's within the Bible. Well, the Bible is also reality. In the Bible, there's a complete psychological reason, generational reason why, that has lasted for generations, why it's so meaningful. We're not going to get into a whole theistic thing, okay? The whole theistic art. There's a freaking rabbit trail we could go down. We're not going to do it, okay? But that's just a simple thing. You cannot remove its timeless value, the Bible. But people certainly can exist and live outside of the Bible's value, which they do all the time. And this is why faith and religion is dead today. Also, though, that's a part of why storytelling is dead. Because a part of storytelling is inherently spirituality. Think of the best stories. 2 seconds. Just think about the best stories. There's always an inherent spiritual essence to those stories. And if it's not just a spiritual essence, it's a raw reality of who the character is that basically honors their spiritual creation. You think of Conan the Barbarian. Well, there is absolute necessity towards a man being composed of both the civilized mind, but also the gruesome, the barbarian mind. Throughout history, this was well known. You know, the only way we could ever have civilization is by having gruesome, barbaric men. You know, obviously, with a tinge of civility and sophistication attached to them. But it doesn't matter, okay? Conan represents the truth of masculinity, the true necessity of masculinity, you know. And okay, let's just leave it there. We're not going to make this about Conan the Barbarian. I've already spoken about this in other videos. So it's just as simple as that, though. That is why his character works. It's just raw masculinity. It's not the soy boy that moralizes every time he has to kill some freaking dude, some other tribe, whatever it is. There's no moralism there. It's like we know why he's doing what he's doing, and he's just a raw masculine character. He's not a petty thug, right? He's a man that's on a mission, and it's as simple as that. This was understood throughout history, and now we've lost this. And this is the next thing, is that now people clutch their pearls in every way whatsoever for the sake of their modern age, new age religion, and that is modernity. And that is, how dare you not believe that men and women are the same? And how dare you not believe that even though it's always been disproven throughout history, how dare you be against multiculturalism? Don't you know it's beautiful when people are at conflict over their values within a culture, and then everyone becomes culturally and based on virtue androgynous, all their values just become a puddle of nothing, of feces. Don't you love your idealistic feces? Don't you just love it? And of course, no one does. And of course, everyone's left in the chaos of not knowing what to do with their life and not knowing who the heck they are. Because guess what? Ideals are the store of value. They are the vessel for stored value across generations. And storytelling is about those stored values across generations. And so when we remove these sorts of things, when we remove the idea that you have a culture, well, you're removing all your stored values, all your stored ideas. And there's no way that you can just, hide there, other culture. We're going to share our stored values with your stored values. It's one vase, bro. You can't mix two vases together without shattering them and then trying to do some weird Frankensteinian kind of creation, melding two broken vases together. What the frick are you doing? And then at that point, it's a new vase, and all the things that defined the two separate vases are gone, destroyed, ruined. These things don't work. but in the lens of modern age, of modernity, of all this modernism that has infected so many people's minds for the sake of the fantasy mind now that has been adapted to this made-up, liberal, or egalitarian mindset. Well, now, what have we done? We have killed storytelling, and we have killed all the generational value that we used to store in our stories. So now there is no generational value. Now there is nothing that matters. And here's the thing. Now you can't have stories about interesting concepts. That is why people ever gave a crap about stories to begin with. People don't care about stories. It is the most depressing crap if you care about a story because you're trying to live through the story. That is pathetic. Go live your own life then. Okay? The hours you put into a story, then just go outside. Literally go outside. The reason we pick up stories is not to avoid life. It is to ascend our ideas, our sense of life. It is for us to expand our notions of thinking, right? It's for the sake of enlightenment. That is the entire purpose of storytelling. It's to get you thinking. It's to get you questioning yourself or the people around you, because maybe there's a much more intelligent idea, much more rhetorical idea that you could pursue. And this is what storytelling used to be. It used to be about philosophy, and that's why it mattered. And it used to be the pursuit of an ideal as well. It was the proving grounds for a philosophical ideal. Now we don't have those anymore. We don't have philosophical ideals anymore. We don't have the highmost idea that we're trying to prove not only to ourselves as the writer, but to the audience. There are no ideas that we wish to prove anymore because we have, oh, hey, by the way, you know this word that people love to have hijacked? The left, they love to hijack the entire English dictionary. And really what it is, they're deconstructionists of language. That is inherently what they are. We now live in an age of deconstruction upon our language, the English language. Just look at freaking meme culture. Look at people saying, L bro, L, oh, W bro, W. Where's the rhetoric? When you say someone W this, W that, where's the rhetoric? There is no rhetoric. You're thinking like a herd animal, and you are expecting that someone is going to do all the thinking for you when you say W this or W that. You're too lazy to actually do the thinking or to provide your argument. You can even provide an argument in 2 to 3 sentences, and people are too lazy and fat and uneducated to even do that. They can't even move their freaking swollen thumbs to even articulate their thoughts that is replaced by just saying W. How pathetic do we have to become before we realize that we've become the villain in our cultural story? And that's what this is coming down. We have become the lazy, fat loser who the dragon has every reason to come into the city and freaking devour the entire society whole. We've become the fat loser. We've become the guy that you look to and say, where the frick is the hero? I'm seeing all these freaking losers. Where's the hero, bro? Where's the battalion of great men that's going to save us? Because it's not these freaking guys. It's not these freaking twinks and morons. And that's where we live today. And that's why our stories suck today. Because no one possesses the ideal. No one can even prove their ideals. When people say, L this, L that, bro. Okay, provide me your rhetoric. There is none. There is no rhetoric. Because people have become slaves, and because people have given themselves to the collectivist mind, and they have become as strong and as valuable as their weakest link, and they do not realize and they do not care because they're too fat, uneducated, and lazy to do anything about it. Past generations were better. Past generations had better storytelling. Past generations were willing to sit there and say, let's make a story about questioning, I wonder if those 1930s guys, were they right or were they wrong? And let's have a whole story, a whole narrative about considering that philosophical premise, because that would make for an interesting story, and someone wants to spend money so that they can expand their mind and so that they can have something more to think about than just mundanity, than just accept what you were told to believe, bro. No, people want to expand their mind. Even the dull, the boring, the fat, and the lazy. They also want to expand their mind. They've just simply sedated themselves so extensively and so far, they've given up. And they've convinced themselves, too, that there's no value in doing that. And that I should just pick up a stupid story where people just have really generic conversations. Hi there, how's it going? Oh, I'm doing well. L bro, L on how you're doing today. freaking moronic bullcrap. Just watch modern bullcrap. We put the most nonsensical dialogue lines in stories now. People say things to say things now. They don't say things to mean something anymore. The Bible says this, and it's very true. A fool always has to say something, but a wise man always has something to say. And you'll find this many times in the Bible, something that no one bothers to read anymore, but you'll find this many times in the Bible. There's a dichotomy of the fool and the wise man. Why is that? Well, fundamentally because the fool believes that he is a wise man because of his ignorance. But also a wise man understands how close at any given time he is to being a fool. Because you're always on the verge of ignorance. You're always on the verge of lacking discipline. A wise man always understands how little he knows, how little he can truly apply his mind. But there's also the element to a wise man that also just the method to which a wise man thinks, and because there's so many other dichotomies about life. Life is full of dichotomies, and a fool, by the way, cannot understand the nuances of dichotomy, so that's another issue too. Fundamentally, like a wise man understands how he has to operate within the world based upon dichotomy, based upon all the competing values that exist within life, right? There are things that compete with each other that both matter. That's not equal across everything, but there are things that matter almost equally, but they're competing values. So there's a balancing act you have to do, and that's what creates the dichotomy oftentimes. It can also be other things too. Maybe it's not a dichotomy, maybe it's something slightly different, but we're not going to get into that whole conversation. The point is, though, with this, is that the Bible is very clear, because it's very true amongst multiple layers, as I said, with dichotomies, with also the way you perceive yourself. And again, the fool will always assume themselves to be the wise man. But also, the fool and the wise man, they operate in a largely, strangely enough, a similar wavelength. Now, of course, the wise, in what it is, it's a form of, you have a problem, you have a nail that needs to be hammered in. Well, it's a flathead, not a screw. Okay, so we need a hammer, let's hammer it in. Well, the fool sits there and they're like, we need a screwdriver, let's screw it in. Both understand that they need to get that nail in, but one guy's going to use the wrong tool. He has every reason to know that he's using the wrong tool. He's just too much of an idiot to understand that he's using the wrong tool. And of course, the other guy, the wise man, he's looking at what the problem is and the right tool for that problem, and he utilizes the right tool, right? He has proper and clear discernment. Typically, a fool, and there's many elements to a fool, but fundamentally, a fool lacks discernment. They will look at the same problems as a wise man, and they will not understand the tools that must be implemented. And they will sit there, and when the screwdriver doesn't work, they'll demonize and vilify either the screwdriver or, more specifically, the hammer. And specifically, when they look at other wise men using hammers instead of screwdrivers on flatheads, they'll sit there and they'll be like, oh, these guys are just freaking, they're cheating, they're stealing, they're doing something wrong. These guys are freaking idiots, they're freaking losers. I can't believe they're all not just using a screwdriver. What's going wrong? Why is it not working for me, right? And this is the kind of bullcrap that happens with a fool. When you look all throughout life, how many times you will find this with individuals. The fool mind, the way it works is that it lacks discernment, and it will always misutilize tools, and will even vilify tools. They will go out of their way to vilify as many hammers as possible because they do not have the discernment to understand when and how to utilize a tool. And this has many other applications, right? But let's just keep it simple. That's what it comes down to, and that's the issue. So the Bible has always spoken about this. It's very clear. And the Bible is storing this generational value that we have now lost. Nowadays, what you have with storytellers and storytelling is that we are now hiring droves and droves of fools. And now it's the fools who have become the commonplace writer of today. Now, and this is a part of the reason why great storytelling is dead, is because truly intelligent men, rhetorical, thoughtful men who think out their position, they don't just say these simplistic, oversimplistic words, because this is what we keep doing, by the way. It's not just L or W. We keep finding random words, one singular word, to speak for a string of sentences that proves your argument, but no one has the articulation or the ability to be compendious within their thoughts. They do not have the ability to articulate themselves, to select their ideas, and not to waste time, your time. So the problem that we end up running into, that we end up dealing with here, is that you have lots of writers who just write lousily, who they have the most generic lines thrown into their stories. They have the most meaningless things spoken or said in their stories, spoken or said in their dialogue, whatever. The concepts and the ideas that they pursue in their stories are mundane and lame. And this is the other issue with that. It's all mundane and lame. There's no creativity anymore. You will have stories that are the exact same copy and paste of another story. They're copying the same beats. They're copying the same arcs. They're copying the same archetypes and characters from other stories. They don't make anything themselves. They can't generate anything new. And that is the modern landscape that we exist within today. No one has ideas anymore. No one has articulation anymore. We don't have intelligent minds. We have many herd, slave, fat, lazy, uneducated minds. So because of this, our stories suck. Because of this, our characters suck. Because of this, our dialogue lines, they suck. Now, nothing is good anymore because no one can bother to do just the slightest bit of effort. Here's the other thing, of course, too. No one is willing to address controversial topics and concepts. In fact, people have done everything in their power to reduce the likelihood that you cover controversial ideas, thoughts, topics. We have done everything in our power to remove that element from storytelling. Well, that is fundamentally what storytelling is about. You remove that, you don't have stories, and therefore stories don't mean anything, and therefore, why is anyone going to spend money for your story? Your crappy story that's literally just modern age propaganda, because that's really all it all comes down to today as well. It's all just liberal propaganda. It's just push the same old boring notions forward that largely people never even really agreed to. Largely no one even ever really processed with it and thought it out and been like, oh, is the writer correct when they say X, Y, and Z? Doesn't matter. You're just supposed to believe it. It's social coercion. Everyone says you're supposed to believe it. Believe it, bro. And again, this is why we cannot have speculative fiction anymore, which is most of all legendary fiction. It's all speculative. It's all considering ideas, not pushing ideas down your throat, pushing an agenda down your throat. Nowadays, it is. It is about pushing an agenda down your throat. It is about the propaganda, the indoctrination, nothing more. So you can have a story, for instance. Let's have a story where the good guy is the 1930s bad guy. Let's have a story about that. And let's have our audience, our viewer, let's have them consider what that means. And let them come down to their own conclusion. Let's give them something to think about. Let's give them something that is hard to think about. Or they just never thought about thinking about it in the first place. But that's what every great story does. And then you have stories like Frankenstein that can make you think about a lot of things. You have stories like, in many ways, and I haven't finished the book yet, and I don't have complete thoughts on this yet, but there's things to think about in stories like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, okay? And those are just other types of stories that I'm just throwing out there. Obviously, you have stuff like, Lord of the Rings, whatever, go down the whole list. There's things to think about within these stories, and they all have meanings between their characters, their articulations, and all the ideas. We don't have that anymore. And nowadays, you can't sit there and have these controversial stories, have these controversial ideas, because also we're pandering to globalism. And for some reason, right, we have to make everybody happy now. Well, that's never been the point of storytelling. And again, storytelling is not multicultural. It cannot be. You cannot meld two vases together without destroying those two vases. And ultimately, the ideals and ideas are stored across time throughout generations. And that's where storytelling comes from. So inherently, storytelling is racial, and it is based in heritage. It is that simple, and it is that very thing that we have been erasing. We have been erasing heritage. We've been erasing the notions of race. We've been erasing the notions of culture. It is all done. It's all gone. And nowadays, what we have for our stories are androgynous blobs where people don't know what they say. They don't know what they mean by what they say. They don't have ideas that they're pursuing when they speak. You hear them and you're like, wow, I could have really lived without hearing what they said. I don't even remember what they said a couple seconds ago. We now have stories, honestly, where most people, they just tune it out, by the way. How many people admit to the fact, oh yeah, I have this television show on and I'm just doing this other thing. Literally listening to some other thing on the phone, on doing that. You're a freaking loser. You're spending your time with something that you're not even investing any energy into. Why is that television show on then? You're not watching it. What, you're folding your freaking laundry? Okay, you're not watching the screen? And you're telling me, okay, so then that means, I guess, that the writer's so crap, or there's something wrong going on with yourself and the writer, that to the point that you're sitting there and you're coming up with all these excuses of, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing that random thing, I'm doing that random thing, while I'm supposed to be sitting down engaging with a story. And so either we have such dog, water, horse crap, pig trough storytelling that nobody wants to pay attention anymore because everyone knows there's no value in it anymore. It's just there to fill in the silence, fill in the void of you existing. Okay? Again, it either makes you the loser or it makes the freaking writers a hack, or both are going on at the same time. What storytelling is ever meant to be, and what storytellers are meant to do, is provide you a story that gets you to speculate, gets you to think, gets you to be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, what that character just said. Oh, that build up to what they said, to how they said it, to how they interacted with that one person. Yo, that's interesting. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that character killed that character. Oh my, I can't believe that the other thing happened. You're supposed to have these moments in storytelling. That's why you sit down and you pay attention. That's why you're wasting your time with it, because you're spending your time with it. You're investing your time with it. It's not to waste time. It is to invest time. We do not have stories any longer today that are built on investing time, because now we hire a bunch of dog water horse crap, mundane thinkers. People are not inspired. They don't have any concepts that they wish to pursue. They're not intelligent enough for philosophy. They do not have the visionary mind. And also, of course, we're hiring more women than we ever should. Okay, sorry. We're hiring women, period. What the frick are we doing? Where are the men who have a philosophical mind? Where are they? Because we're not hiring them anymore. We're hiring soy boys. We're hiring men that think like women. And we're hiring women, okay? We're hiring people who were never the innovators of thought, innovators of civilization. And here we are. Our stories suck. Our characters suck. Our dialogue sucks. Everything sucks, and everyone's imitating off the people who did have ideas, the people who did pursue these controversial ideas. You have these old writers, they saw something happen in the world, and instead of just sitting there and being like, I'm gonna just have moral outrage, be hysterical, and be like, I can't believe this, and I can't believe that, and oh my gosh, I can't emotionally process or reason with this. No, they just sat there, they saw something happen in the world, they had their own conclusions, their own deductions, but then they sat there and said, how can I think about this? And then after they thought about it, they said, okay, now how do I approach this? How do I talk about this? How do I come to terms with this? Let me think on the other side of the argument. Let me think on my side of the argument. Let me create a story about that conflict, about the two sides of the argument. Go down the list of history. Let's go down the entire list. Think about gender dynamics. Think about cultural dynamics. Think about the conflicts, foreign conflicts, internal conflicts. Think about these things. Think about the stories that could be made. Think about how writers used to think, which was to think on both sides of the argument, not to think within the lens of indoctrination and propaganda. They thought within the lens of something extraordinary or unbelievable, or something outside of the ordinary, something that now requires my speculation occurred and happened. Let me make a story. Let me think about this through narrative and characters, and let me find a way to either prove my ideals or to investigate and explore ideals. That no longer is the core premise of storytelling. This is why old storytelling was great storytelling. That's why we keep on using those concepts and those ideas today. Even though we want to call these older writers, we want to call them bigots. We want to call them these outdated authors, these outdated ideas that, you know, you're too old this, or you're too outdated that, or you're too far gone that, or you're too twisted and bent backward, and oh my gosh, we're so enlightened today. Well, guess what? All these lousy liberals, who are fascists, by the way, they've taken absolute control over these industries, and they're doing everything in their power to have absolute ubiquitous control to push out anyone that thinks otherwise than them. That's why everything's crap today. And it's these exact people who do all of this, who trash on the past. Every single thing that they can bother making today is based on the past. And that's all they do. They hijack the past. They take these same ideas from the past. You will look at their stories and it's like, Oh my gosh, that's the same character from Dracula. Oh my gosh, that's the same character from that older story. Why is that story from the Brothers Grimm fairy tales? Why is that? What? That's weird. Same character. Oh my, it's almost one for one. Oh, that's interesting. This one biblical character. That's weird. That archetype is weird. That's in this story. Oh, I thought these people were enlightened. I thought these people had better ideas. I thought these people were far more intelligent. I thought all these adult children, I thought they were better and far more well thought out than all these old, outdated adults of previous centuries. Oh, that's weird. I thought they were the modern Shakespeare. Where's my modern Shakespearean play? Where's the new ideas? Why are they copying Romeo and Juliet? Why are they just making a crappy multicultural version of Romeo and Juliet with smartphones now? Oh wow, that's so interesting. Storytelling is dead because no one is intelligent enough to write. Storytelling is dead because no one is a philosopher anymore. Storytelling is dead because of fascist control by ideological, hysterical leftists. Storytelling is dead because adult children are writing now. Storytelling is dead because the mundane mind is now the mind that is writing for stories, not the insightful mind. Storytelling is dead because instead of hiring men, we're hiring women. Storytelling is dead because we're not willing to be controversial and we are not willing to stand on both sides of a conflict and write out the conflict rather than preaching against the viewer, against the audience, who you must decide is morally righteous in the conflict. And let's just be clear about this. Modern storytelling is dead, great storytelling is dead, because people are too dull, boring, and stupid to pursue any worthwhile ideas. No one is willing to think of anything new anymore. No one is willing to problem solve through difficult thoughts, concepts, or philosophical positions anymore. Everyone lives, everyone functions within the slave mind. They are afraid of what they think, and therefore they are afraid of what they will say. They are not capable nor willing to simply utilize the mind that they're given and to contemplate. We are incapable today of contemplation. We are incapable today of speculation, fascination. We cannot do these things any longer. And therefore, because of this, and specifically when we're talking about men, we have become such cowards in our ability to think. You will not find new ideas in fiction. You will not find new stories in fiction. You will find rewashed, rehashed, dog water horse crap. Because no one is capable of using the mind that they're given. No one is capable of thinking outside of their prescribed box that they were put within. Modern age philosophy lives within a self-proposed golden cage. We believe that we live within these immaculate values that no one can hinder or invalidate in some way. We assume that our ideas are impenetrable because we are so foolish unto ourselves to believe that we are wiser than our own generational ignorance. We now, when it comes down to intellect and intelligence within our civilization, we have generational amnesia. We have an incapability, the absolute incomprehension with philosophical content, subject matter, concepts and ideas, and the ability to rationalize a comprehensive thought. We can no longer do these things, and we have become such blubbering idiots that we cannot even fathom an idea that goes longer than 5 sentences. This is the decay of the modern mind, and it's this exact decay upon the modern mind which has destroyed our stories, destroyed our ability for storytelling. We will not get storytellers anymore these days, great storytellers anymore these days, because they're not adults, they don't think like adults. They write like children, they think like children, they're afraid of their own thoughts, they're afraid of their own ideas, they're so intellectually incompetent, incapable, that when they have a controversial thought inside their head, the first thought that runs through is say, run away. Run away as far as you can. Go into the arms and the clutches of some coddling mother somewhere that you can find and cry. Cry for as long as you can on her freaking shoulder, wherever else you can find the cry. And as all modern writers do now, they are afraid of themselves. They are afraid of their own ideas. And in modern civilization, we have grown afraid of our ability to think, and this is only because of propaganda. You fear to consider who of two competing sides, might be wrong and might be correct. You're afraid of challenging yourself and your own presuppositions, saying, well, maybe I'm wrong about the way I look at the world. Maybe I should just, for 2 seconds, I should just think a little bit deeper before I come down to my predilections. No, there is no such thing as that. There's only one such thing, and that is the conformity, the conformist mind, the mind in which you must give yourself cede all intellectual territory before you ever risk truly thinking for yourself and providing something of novel value to those listening to you.